Hello everyone, welcome back to the Global Conflict News channel. Please subscribe to my channel because today we are diving into one of the most dramatic and high-impact events of this entire war, a strike that shocked markets, military planners, and governments across the world. Ukraine has destroyed an estimated $3.7 billion worth of infrastructure at Russia's largest oil port, a strike that not only crippled a vital artery of Moscow's economy but also demonstrated the future of modern warfare where low-cost drones and innovative tactics can bring billion-dollar facilities to their knees. What unfolded was more than a battle event, it was an economic earthquake and a geopolitical tremor felt across Europe, Asia, and far beyond. To understand its scale, we must step back and see how a facility once considered a fortress could be reduced to flames in a matter of hours. The story begins in the quiet darkness before dawn. Russia's largest oil port, a sprawling complex designed to handle millions of barrels of crude oil and refined petroleum products every day, believed itself protected by layers of air defenses, patrols, and technology. On maps and in Moscow's propaganda, this port was untouchable, a jewel of infrastructure that pumped wealth into Russia's treasury and fuel into global markets. But Ukraine's planners had other ideas. Using intelligence, satellite imagery, and months of reconnaissance, they crafted an operation aimed at striking the very heart of Russia's war economy. Their weapons were not massive bombers or fleets of warships but swarms of relatively inexpensive drones, flying kamikaze drones designed to evade radars and seaborne drones designed to slip past defenses on the water. As the first wave of drones approached, Russian operators scrambled to react. Sirens wailed, anti-aircraft guns lit up the night sky, and radar screens filled with signals. But these defenses, optimized for large and fast-moving aircraft, struggled against the small, low-flying profiles of Ukrainian drones. Some were shot down, but enough got through. Moments later, thunderous explosions ripped across the port. One storage tank erupted in a ball of fire so large it illuminated the coastline. A second and third tank followed within minutes. Pipelines burst, docking platforms shattered, and a firestorm swept through the facility. Witnesses reported hearing one explosion after another, some so strong they rattled buildings miles away. The once orderly rows of steel tanks and pumping stations became a landscape of fire and destruction. From the outside, the port was a marvel of industrial design. Rows of silvery tanks glistened under the sun, pipelines extended like metallic arteries, and massive loading docks stretched into the sea, ready to accommodate supertankers bound for global markets. It symbolized Russian strength and reliability as an energy supplier. But when the attack came, this proud exterior became a backdrop for devastation. The flames consumed its polished surfaces, and black smoke filled the sky. The physical appearance of strength was shattered, replaced with images of chaos beamed across the world. International media quickly spread footage of fireballs and burning tanks, showing that what was once a monument to Russia's wealth was now a symbol of its vulnerability. Inside the facility, panic reigned. Workers rushed to shut down valves and cut power to pumps, but the chain reaction of explosions was faster than any human response. Electrical surges from the initial strikes fried control systems, leaving operators blind to the status of key machinery. Emergency fire suppression systems failed under the sheer intensity of the blaze, and the pressure within tanks made controlled venting impossible. Some workers fled to safety while others fought desperately to slow the inferno, but in reality there was nothing they could do. The interior infrastructure, valves, control rooms, pumps, and safety devices, was crippled in minutes. The very systems designed to contain disaster became casualties themselves, overwhelmed and useless in the face of coordinated strikes. For Russia, it was a brutal revelation. The interior resilience of its largest oil port was far weaker than expected. Performance is where the story turns into a case study of modern warfare. Ukrainian drones, relatively cheap compared to conventional missiles or jets, demonstrated range, accuracy, and reliability. Flying at low altitudes, skimming over terrain, and coordinating in swarms, they confused and bypassed Russian defenses. Each hit was not random but carefully aimed: tanks, junctions, and pumping stations that amplified the chaos of the strike. The performance of Ukraine's tactics was exceptional, not only in delivering destruction but in how it exploited Russia's blind spots. Russia's defensive performance, on the other hand, was dismal. Systems like the Pantsir S-1 and S-300, long marketed as foolproof, struggled to adapt. Their radar operators faced a nightmare scenario of dozens of small targets appearing simultaneously. Ammunition supplies were strained, some batteries ran low, and electronic warfare units failed to jam the drones effectively. Billions of dollars in air defense infrastructure could not stop drones that cost a fraction of that amount. This imbalance in performance told the world something vital. In modern war, expensive defense systems can be defeated by cheap but clever offensive tools. Safety is another dimension to consider. For Ukraine, the use of drones meant maximum safety for its forces. No pilots flew into hostile airspace, no commandos risked storming the port, and no Ukrainian personnel were endangered directly. Operators remained far away, guiding the drones by satellite link or pre-programmed routes. This approach preserved human life while achieving massive impact. Russia, however, saw its safety features collapse. Ports are equipped with automatic fire suppression systems, emergency venting, and crew drills to contain accidents. But these safety nets were built for industrial mishaps, not precision strikes by hostile drones. Once explosions began, the cascading failures rendered these protections useless. Fires spread beyond containment zones, systems melted, and pipelines cracked under pressure. The safety architecture of the port was no match for a war-designed assault. What makes this strike uniquely significant are its selling points, not in the commercial sense but in the strategic and symbolic sense. First is the psychological effect. For Russia, the message was chilling. No matter how deep inside its territory, no matter how vital the target, Ukraine can strike. For the Russian public and leadership, this shattered illusions of safety. For the Ukrainian public, it was a morale boost, proof that ingenuity and resilience could offset disadvantages in size and resources. Second is the strategic significance. Oil exports are the lifeblood of Russia's economy, funding its war machine and stabilizing its government budget. By striking the largest port, Ukraine hit not just a military target but an economic artery. The destruction disrupted supply lines, created bottlenecks in export schedules, and reduced Russia's capacity to generate revenue. This was not simply an explosion, it was an economic blow that reverberated through every aspect of Russia's war effort. Third is the global impact. Oil traders, shipping companies, and governments all took notice. Prices spiked on world markets as uncertainty about supply spread. Insurance companies raised premiums on routes involving Russian oil. Allies of Ukraine celebrated the strike as a demonstration of resistance, while some neutral countries worried about instability in energy markets. The strike thus extended beyond the battlefield into boardrooms, trading floors, and diplomatic chambers around the world. Now let's examine the price, both literal and symbolic. The estimated $3.7 billion in damage is staggering. It includes destroyed infrastructure, lost revenue from halted exports, costs of emergency response, environmental damage, and future reconstruction expenses. For Russia, this was not just about replacing steel and pipes. It meant a long-term reduction in capacity, higher maintenance costs for remaining infrastructure, and a need to divert resources away from the front lines to defend other vulnerable facilities. The true price also includes the psychological toll on workers, investors, and the global perception of Russia's reliability as an energy supplier. Compare that to the cost for Ukraine. A drone can be built for tens of thousands of dollars, maybe slightly more depending on sophistication. A naval drone is costlier but still minuscule compared to a fighter jet or cruise missile. The return on investment for Ukraine was astronomical, tens of millions of dollars in costs inflicted billions in losses. This economic asymmetry is perhaps the most important lesson of the strike. In warfare today, the side that innovates and leverages cost-effective tools can force a stronger opponent into a spiral of overspending and defensive panic. As we conclude, what does all this mean for the war and for the world? First, it signals that Ukraine has moved beyond defensive tactics and is striking directly at the foundations of Russia's war machine. By crippling oil infrastructure, Kyiv sends a message that no part of Russia's economy is immune. Second, it proves that modern warfare favors adaptability. Drones, cyber tactics, and precision targeting can outmatch traditional armies burdened by bureaucracy and outdated doctrines. Third, it underlines the interconnectedness of the world. A strike in one port in Russia sends ripples across global markets, affecting gas stations in Europe, stock exchanges in Asia, and energy policies in America. For Russia, this event is a warning that unless it adapts quickly, its vast but vulnerable infrastructure could become a liability. For Ukraine, it is a demonstration that courage, innovation, and strategy can compensate for numerical inferiority. For the world, it is a glimpse into the wars of the future, where billion-dollar assets can be undone by $1,000 tools. The destruction of $3.7 billion at Russia's largest oil port is therefore not just a headline. It is a story of resilience against aggression, of brains over brute force, and of a changing balance in warfare. It reminds us that in this conflict, and in conflicts to come, the most valuable weapon may not be the biggest or the most expensive, but the one that adapts fastest to the moment.